Hey, good morning to those of you out there in the West Coast in the Pacific where I want to go sailing and travel all around those islands. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day, and I hope it's just as good a day in the middle of the country for those of you in the central and mountain regions. We're going to get ready to get started here, but before we start, I'd like to share a tip just as a thank you to those of you who show up early and on time. Actually, do me a favor in the chat, put your what's city and state you're calling from, because I like to see that. I rarely ask that, but it's fun to see. My tip for you, for those of you who showed up early and on time, is to look at my posts, right? And you can put this on anybody else out there as well that you follow. But look at my posts because I always post content that's related to success in the federal market one way or another. For example, this morning I posted a NOAA strategic plan for the 4-year plan, 2022 through 2026, typically goes administration by administration. And one of the things, though, I posted in the comments below that plan was that NOAA, they have a supplier portal. And I actually didn't have this I don't think I had this in our supplier portal directory. So I found that this morning when I was doing this prep for the post. And so when you follow content like mine or other people you might find putting out relevant information to what you're trying to do in your company, when you follow us, sometimes you get these really great tips and there are great pieces of information. And so I want to make sure you're never missing that. Make sure you're following people on LinkedIn. I think I said this before, 15 minutes a day is nothing for you to be able to gather information that can be super helpful to you. So, okay, we're going to get started in a second. Just want to say hi to Lori and Brenda, Jim, Les and Russ and others who are coming in really super early. I appreciate that. I think today I want to give out the award to the most consistent and earliest riser, Russ out in Hawaii, always in here. Say hello to Russ. If you haven't connected with him, connect with him. But you'll see him on here. And Russ, make sure you're saying hello to everybody and letting him know you're open to connections. He's in not to niche you down too much without you doing it, Russ, but in the program project management side of the house. Okay, so that was the tip for the day. Let me turn off this caption and we get rocking and rolling. In today's training, I want to talk to you about how to get federal agencies to knock on your doors. This is totally doable. I have this happen to customers of ours all the time, to people who are just in the community. This happens all the time. And today is about sharing how you can make that happen for yourself. There's hundreds of thousands of buyer representatives within the federal market. DoD alone has 185,000 acquisition personnel. These are people in acquisition-related jobs. Every year, they have like 400,000 people taking training related to acquisition. So people who are in the acquisition jobs and people who are outside but still part of acquisition, they're taking this training. So there's a ton of folks who are in the acquisition side of the house. Think about them as federal buyers. There's no way you're going to reach them all, right? You need them to find you when they're ready, when they're looking for a company like you. And I call this passive sales versus active sales, right? Versus you knocking on a buyer's door. You can call it marketing. You can call it whatever you want. But the point is you want to be found by buyers when they're looking for a seller like you. It's that simple, right? And that's why I call it passive selling. It's happening 24/7 when those buyer representatives are doing their own research. And we'll talk more about that. Specifically today, I'm going to cover 3 things. I'm going to cover understanding why and when federal buyers will come knock on your door. How to make sure you're where the buyers are looking. When they're looking for doors to knock on, you want to make sure that your door is visible. And then how you can make it clear that you sell what they need by having a focused offer. So those are the 3 things we're going to cover today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And I want to welcome you to my daily live federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have predictable, repeatable results. And that's what I want for you. Do me a favor, help buyers remember who you are, help me and help others in the community remember who you are. Put your company name into the chat. Use 2 or 3 keywords to describe what you do, what your core competency is, and put that in the chat as well. It's really important you do this every time. I'm driving buyers into our community as well. In fact, just as an early heads up, starting I think as early as next week, we're going to start having buyers as guest guests of mine in one of the lives each week. And so we're going to change it up a little bit as we go into our next 300 training sessions. But I want buyers to be able to know who you are. And that comes from you telling us your company name, your core competency. If you're a hub zone, woman owned, SDVO 8A, for example, put that in the chat. Let us know. Don't keep all this stuff a secret. Finally, I wanted to say thank you to our sustaining members. We're not funded by the government or large primes. We're funded by, we're self-funded, right? Sustaining members like me and you are the ones who provide this training for small businesses across the board. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate that. I get so many people who are not sustaining members thanking me for what we're providing, and really that thanks I should be passing on to you. So thank you very much for being a sustaining member. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. I have a couple of screens I want to share, and then I'll come back. But the first thing I want to talk about is the acquisition process, right? Is understanding or knowing when the buyer is going to be looking for you. So let me just share my screen really quick. Okay, I think I'm sharing my screen, just a couple of quick slides. If you haven't seen this next slide, it's what I call, it's this handout that we provide folks out there, you if you want it, but it's this idea of shifting left in the acquisition lifecycle. And what we mean is if you hear about things in SAM, it's generally, not always, but generally too late because all you're doing is writing a response. But if you can get engaged with the buyer earlier, then you will be able to influence it more. Anybody who tells you about it's okay to be in SAM will also tell you that if you can talk to the buyer before SAM, that's even better. So I'm not knocking SAM. I just want to tell you the value of hearing about things earlier. And you can see that from this diagram that if you shift left in the process, the relationship that you have and the influence you have will be stronger than if you wait until the RFP drops. And the reason I'm saying this, I want you to understand when are buyers looking for companies like yours? When might they knock on a door? And I got two slides from two different perspectives. This first slide is my slide from a sales perspective. The next slide will be an acquisition process from the government's perspective. But in here, if you look in the middle, because I want to go left, right below the word week, it says RFP phase. So the idea is when it gets here, generally the buyer is no longer talking to the seller, right? So you want to start moving forward. This market research is a formal part of the government's acquisition lifecycle. They're certainly talking to you, but in a more formal way. What I want you to be thinking about is earlier than that in this informal phase where there's a requirement exploration, and I'm going to show you through bullets on the next slide. But from the minute they have an idea and they're like, you know what, I think we need a new building. Well, we're going to have to talk to construction folks. We're going to need elevators, right? I think I need a new software product. Yeah, but should it be built on Google or Oracle or Microsoft platforms? You know, that idea phase is so early before they ever even decide the requirements. They're just still trying to figure out what they want, right? And your ability to get in there would be great. That's business development. But at that same time, they're doing the same as you. They're going out to the internet and they're looking for information, maybe looking for trusted advisors like you to talk to. And so you want to get engaged earlier in the life cycle. And so I call this the informal part of market research. And then you can see where I've got the formal part of market research. I've got just some examples. Today's training is not about the how of market research. You can go watch a separate training on that. But I got some examples of how you can influence buyers before you ever have a meeting with them, right? By sharing white papers or YouTube videos. I do this with many of you, right? Many of you I have not talked to. And my favorite thing is when somebody says they know, like, and trust me before they ever had a conversation with me. And it's because of this dialogue through, LinkedIn and YouTube, et cetera. Well, you can do the same thing with your buyers, the federal buyers, by sharing information out there. And then later on in today's training, I'll talk about being visible if they decide to follow up with you. So this is from the sales perspective, right? The sales life cycle, the acquisition life cycle. I want you to shift left. This next slide, and this is courtesy USDA. It was by far my favorite federal acquisition roadmap. Most importantly, the reason it's my favorite is because they actually shared it out to industry saying, hey, when we have a requirement, it goes through this process, right? Some steps might go faster than others, but it goes through this process. This is how we measure our progress on a requirement from idea to award at the bottom, right? The reason I'm sharing this is I want you to understand when might the government start looking for you? When might they come knocking on doors? If you understand that, you can begin to understand how you position yourself at different points. If you wait until the RFP drops, wherever the heck that is, somewhere over here, final solicitation issued to vendors, right? The stop mark. If you wait till then, well, there's not a lot of dialogue going on. But just like I said before, shift left, or in this case, shift left and then right and then left again. If you come all the way back to the beginning, look right here where it talks about team formation and development and engaging the business stakeholders. This is the very earliest stage, what I called an idea in my head. Before it's even formalized with a contracting shop, et cetera, you've got the program office thinking about it. And they're talking to the business stakeholders saying, well, what do you need? What are some of your requirements, right? Before it even gets written into an SOW or PWS, it's just written on a whiteboard. What are you thinking, right? And so at this point, they begin to start looking to the internet, just like you might look to the internet. If you're looking for some tool for accounting in your office or marketing or whatever, you might start doing some initial research before you ever have a meeting, before you ever decide to buy something. You're just exploring the whole requirement. And so in the federal side, on the acquisition lifecycle, you want to be able to understand your customer's process. This is USDA. If you're in the Navy or Department of Education, et cetera, you want them to give you this map. Or if they don't have one, you want to build it yourself by asking them questions about, hey, can you guide me through the process? And by the way, if you're a federal buyer, do me a favor, throw this out there to the industry. Help us understand truly the process. But as you start going along, I don't want to go over every step in here, but you can see as they're starting to shape the opportunity, they have different needs for you. So when they start getting into this section in the middle, draft PWS and SOW, or statement of objectives, I mean, when they get to that, they're really starting to narrow down on the requirements. They might start doing an RFI. I don't know if it's got right here, market research right over on the right. The RFI is request for information. If it's done correctly, or if it's done to the intent of an RFI, it's about engaging industry to talk about the requirements, to help the government actually shape the requirements, and for them to be able to write a really clear PWS and SOW for industry and for that requirement. So there's this stage where the government wants to engage you. They engage you through looking at the internet, right? They try to find you through market research, sources sought, or RFIs. And so you want to be out there. But if you understand where and when they might look for you and why at each stage, then you'll be able to create marketing material. And I don't mean a lot of extra stuff. An example of a marketing material could be a response, right? It doesn't have to be a slick sheet that stood up. It could just be a response to a source of sought. It could be a YouTube video, et cetera. Okay, so let me stop sharing that guy for a second and come back. Okay, so that was understanding the acquisition process, right? And knowing when in the process a buyer might look for you. I want to talk now about being where buyers are, right? So if they're going to go out and look for you, one of the biggest challenges I find that small businesses face is a lack of visibility to the federal buyer. You can take everything DOD and the federal government's trying to do with the supplier base and diversity and small business inclusion. And for me, it comes down to visibility, the ability for buyers to find sellers and to sellers to reach sellers, or buyers, I mean. And if that confusion, if that hurdle that's in between, or that that fog that's preventing the two parties to come together, if that could be cleared up, then the federal government would find a lot more qualified small businesses like yours. But I know so many small businesses like yours who are qualified, lots of past performance, but when the buyer goes to look, you're invisible to them. So let's talk about a couple of ways that how the buyer goes to look for companies like yours. They're going to knock on somebody's door. Where do they look to start finding those doors? The first place they're going to look are at current or recent awardees. So people who currently have a contract that are supporting an agency. Let's say NOAA today is the example, because I just posted their content. So any vendor who's currently supporting NOAA, that might be the first place they look, and somebody who just had a contract expire this year or last year. So these are recent proven vendors within an agency. They can trust them. They probably can trust them because they have good CPARs, right? So the first place they look at is current vendors who are supporting their current requirements. The second place they look, and this gets into formal marketing research and outreach, is they look to respondents. And so before they look to new respondents, they look to respondents of RFIs, sources sought, or RFPs in the past. So contracting officers or other market research personnel, when they're starting to look out to industry and they're trying to find companies, why bother putting out a whole new market research sources sought, whatever, before looking at the people who just responded to the last requirement we had that was kind of similar? So the first place I might look is that. If I have an industry day for a technology project, but I just had an industry day 6 months ago on another technology project that's kind of related, I might look in there. And if I got 100 people who attended that industry day or responded to that sources sought or RFP or RFI, I might reach out to them initially and say, hey, we're exploring this requirement. Would you like to come in and talk with us? Would you like to share any information, et cetera? Very earliest stages of market research. And then the second part of that responding group is people who respond to a new RFP or new RFI or sources sought on this opportunity they have. If they have this opportunity, they're going to put sources sought out there. The third place they might look is their agency portal. I just talked about NOAA. If you didn't get here, I said NOAA is an agency that I hadn't realized had a supplier portal. So we have a supplier portal directory that you should download off our website. It's free out there, but it lists all the agency supplier portals. And I just noticed that we didn't have NOAA in there. I don't think we did. And so agencies like NOAA would look first into their own supplier portal before anywhere else and go, hey, do we have interested vendors? So an example is HHS has 2,300 women-owned small businesses that are registered within HHS's supplier portal. Why would they need to go anywhere else if they can first start here with the women-owned small businesses who have shown up and expressed interest in specifically working with that agency? So you want to make sure you're looking at an agency portal, your target agency, and make sure you register. So you always want to be asking that question. Do you guys use an internal supplier portal or an informal spreadsheet of interested vendors? Whatever it is, you want to be asking these questions of small business professionals and contract officers. So the first one was looking at recent or current contract holders. Second one was anybody who responded in the past. Third one is supplier portals. Now we're starting to go farther out. The fourth place they go look, and this is the place where most small businesses are completely invisible, is DSBS, your small business profile. Your small business profile is made up of your SAM registration and DSBS. Although some people think this is just one thing I have to do to get in and sell to the government, it is the most important market research tool or marketing asset within government contracting, right? For any government contractor, this hands down is the most important, 1,000 times more important than your website. No federal government buyer is going to your website before they go to DSBS. Yet your websites will look fantastic and your DSBS profile might be invisible, right? I did training last week where I was talking about if you went to look for zero trust architecture. So this is a cybersecurity kind of buzzword that's going on right now. If you went to look for that in DSBS, you're talking about finding 10 companies out of hundreds of thousands of companies listed in there because people aren't putting the right keywords. They're not filling out a profile that makes them attractive to the buyer, which I'll talk about in a minute as we wrap up. But so DSBS is the next place they look. It's the one major market research tool that federal buyers are all taught about. When you go to do market research and you're looking for hub zones or 8As or woman-owned small business or service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses or any small business of any type, when you try to go look for them, go to DSBS, and in there you'll be able to find them. One of the biggest things that contracting officers talk about is when companies like yours might complain that they don't set it aside, but if you look, you're not telling the buyer that you sell zero trust architecture or that you sell elevators, et cetera. And I often have customers who go fill that out properly, and I have a whole training for free on how to do that. They fill it out properly, and within weeks they're getting called. Not a ton. I'm not promising sales, but I'm just saying, if it's not filled out, how on earth can a buyer find you, right? So filling that DSBS profile is really important, and it's very simple. And the last place buyers go look that I want to mention today is LinkedIn. I talk to buyers on the large prime side and the government side where they go into LinkedIn and they're doing searches in LinkedIn for zero trust architecture, let's say. And so they're trying to find you out there. What we recommend you do is make sure your LinkedIn profile basically is saying the same thing as your DSBS profile and your capability statement. This is why I tell you, put your capability statement in to your LinkedIn profile so it's indexed. Make sure you're letting people know in your experience section, if you're a woman-owned or a HubZone company, for example, because there's Google and LinkedIn, they index your profile. And when somebody searches for, let's say, HubZone SharePoint, you want to make sure you get found, right? And so those 5 places are where buyers go look when they want to go knocking on your door. And if you begin to fill these out, right, the early ones are a little harder because you have to either have a contractor ready or responding, but start with number 4 and work your way back up, and you'll be where the buyers are looking. So let me just remind you, you can either be a current awardee or past awardee, right? So if you have work with an agency, make sure you're keeping that relationship warm. The second place that you're going to look at is RFI and sources sought, making sure you're responding, because even if you don't get pulled in for that opportunity, they will look to you for future ones because you took the time to engage with them. You communicated that you want to work with them. Third place is the supplier portals for the agency. Fill it out. Fourth one's DSBS, and the fifth one's LinkedIn. So you want to fill this information out correctly in there so that you're where the buyers are looking. Okay, so let's move on to the last part that is important to helping or to encouraging buyers to knock on your door, right? How do you get federal buyers to knock on your door? The first thing I said is understand when they would be knocking on your door. Second thing is making sure that you're visible where they're going to go look. And then the third thing I want to talk about is just having a focused offer. I said this early on, but this idea of a focused offer will make sure that when a buyer comes looking for you, and the reason they're coming to look for you, they will see that what you sell matches their need. And that's really, really important. So this last tip I want to give you is about looking at what you're communicating to the buyers, and is it focused enough that they can see that what you sell is what they need. So when I work with customers and I have a BD Accelerator workshop and I guide them one-on-one, when we do that, the very first thing I start with is something called visibility. But most importantly, it's about making sure their offer is focused. And it's what I'm going to teach you right now. You want to make sure the offer is focused. And because it is so important, I start at the beginning of that. When somebody in the federal government goes to look for a company like yours, all things aside, keywords are how they're going to find you. If you go to look for somebody for your office or your home or whatever, you're going to use keywords to search for them. I'm going to use plumber as an example, but most searches by market researchers are going to be keyword related, especially when you think about early in the process. No one is going to search for a NAICS code. In fact, most program offices probably aren't even that familiar with NAICS codes, right? They're going to search for zero trust architecture. They're going to look for elevators. What elevators are best, steel or aluminum? Aluminum's lighter, might go faster, but steel will withstand a fall or whatever, right? They're going to search on keywords or phrases, things like that, the same way we naturally search. And so you want to make sure that you understand what keywords, top 5 keywords you want to be found for, right? Once you have 5, then you can go to 10, but start with 5 keywords you want to be found. So let me use an example of a search a federal buyer might do to find a company like yours. So imagine they have plumbing needs, and they want somebody just either their bathroom facilities are broken, or they want somebody to come in and manage a contract next year on replacing the toilets, whatever it is. They might type in plumber, right? They might type in toilet, but they might type in plumber as the search. So when they get a whole bunch of results, which is exactly what happens when you search on the internet or when you search in DSBS, supplier portals, whatever it is, when you search, you're going to get a bunch of results with people who have used the keyword plumber in the results. Now, think about these 2 sets of results that come back from company A and company B. Company A's results come back, and when the buyer is looking at your profile, at your capability narrative, the words that they see that are coming up in your narrative are related to toilets, sinks, clogs, pipes, etc., right? Things that you can think that are related to a plumber. Company B, they come back, and the first word that comes back is plumber and plumbing, and then framing and painting and construction and road paving and electrical work, right? That second company is trying to communicate. They do everything related to a building that needs to be done. You know, you look in there and you see roofing in there and you see siding. You see all this stuff. I can do general construction. And so when I'm looking for a plumber, when the federal buyer is looking for a plumber, which company is going to be more attractive to them initially? It's not the company that says they do everything. in particular, when that company is a small business and they're saying they do everything, it is much better to have a focused offer that says, hey, we do all this plumbing. I do a separate training where I talk about you can use that as a beachhead. So once you're in, you can say, hey, we can repair those toilets or replace those toilets. And as long as we're here, we can do the sinks. And by the way, this bathroom is like, the lighting is really bad in here and everything else. Do you want us to kind of do that? Now you're starting to expand, but you're expanding with a customer. You're not expanding outside in the market. When you say do everything, it's hard for us to understand what you do well. When you say you do one thing, it's easy for us to see this. Even if you don't say it, it's easy for us to see that you probably do it well. The other thing about that focused offering, when you look at those two companies, the company B might actually have a framing past performance, a painting past performance, a roofing past performance, a plumbing past performance. That's past performance, but imagine that against company A that has toilet repair, sink repair, bathroom repair, plumbing. Their past performances all scream that they do and get paid what they say they do. And so the last part of this focused offer I want you to pay attention to is when you have a focused offer, and I should be implying this already, right? You're going to be seen as that subject matter expert. That's what I meant by all these past performances lead to it. But when you have a focused offer, everything you're saying is kind of screaming subject matter expert. When you're posting content out on LinkedIn or the internet, that content is related to plumbing. Let's stick with that for 1 second, right? Compared to Imagine Company B, what content do they post? Here's top 10 tips for roof. Here's top 10 tips for electric. Well, then your audience won't keep coming there. But if you keep it focused and your content is focused, now your marketing efforts can be focused. And so there's a lot to be said about focused offer, which makes it easy for the government buyer to find you because of the keyword searches, et cetera. All your keywords are related to that focused offer. It also makes it easy for them to see that you are the subject matter expert and you clearly can be a trusted advisor that can come in and help them, right? And so it's really important as you move forward and you want to get federal buyers to knock on your door to have those have that focused offer, which makes it easy for them to find you and really see you as that expert. So one last thing, right? Buyers are looking for companies like yours every single day. Guaranteed. I told you in the very beginning of this training, there's hundreds of thousands of federal buyers. That is not an overstatement, right? There's hundreds of thousands of, not all of them are looking for plumbers, right? But there's hundreds of thousands of buyers looking for small businesses like yours every single day. If you're not being contacted by federal buyers to come talk with them, even just once in a while, once a week, once a month, if you're not being contacted by teammates or federal buyers, then I want you to consider what I shared today, especially about where they look, right? Are you communicating what you sell where they look? Those 5 places I said that. Do me a favor. If you found today's training valuable, consider becoming a sustaining member of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Help other people get this same training. If you're looking for one-on-one support to go to the next level, consider my BD Accelerator workshop for companies that are already making some money and just want to go to the next level. Just ping me on LinkedIn if you'd like to learn more. And remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll talk to you in the next training.